Well, it is 2 years of the Modi government, and here on CNBC TV 18, we're doing a performance appraisal of just how this government has fared. We're here in Delhi's sweltering heat, right outside the ministry that is linked very closely to the markets. We're outside Raisina Hill, outside North Block. With me is the Economic Affairs Secretary, Mr. Shaktikanta. Sir, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Since the markets are trading at this point in time, and there is some degree of nervousness and anxiety on the issue of P-notes, let me start by asking you about that. Because we understand that there is a board meeting of SEBI on the 20th, and the P-note issue is going to be discussed at that board meeting. We do know what the SIT had recommended. I remember you had a conversation with me the day the SIT recommendations had come out on P-note, saying that the markets have no need to worry. The government will not take any knee-jerk reactions. What should we expect on P-notes, sir?
So far as P-notes are concerned, as I had told you earlier, it will be done in a manner that will not upset the markets. SEBI has already held consultations with various market players, and whatever will be done in consultation with the market players. So we don't want to create a regime. You see, the regime has to be transparent enough and should be, should be effective enough to get all the information. At the same time, we don't want to create any cumbersome procedure or too much of an intrusive procedure which sort of puts off the market. So therefore, a careful balance has to be found. And let me say that whatever we do, whatever SEBI does, will be done in consultation with the various market players.
You know, I'm sure that's good to hear, sir, but let me ask you in terms of specifics now, because if one looks at the SIT recommendations and one understands that SEBI is looking at the possibility of implementing certain of those recommendations, in terms of the beneficial ownership issue and whether KYC should be made mandatory for P-note issuers, at least above a certain threshold for individuals and a certain threshold for companies or firms, what is the decision that has been taken, at least in consultation with the market regulator? Where does Finance Ministry stand on this, sir?
You see, the decision will be taken in the SEBI board meeting in consultation, after detailed discussion with all the members present. And no decision has been taken as yet. It will be discussed and a decision arrived at. And at this point of time, it will not be appropriate on my part to go into the details about...
But do you believe KYC should be made mandatory for P-notes, sir?
KYC is already, the SEBI has a robust KYC mechanism. In fact, over the last 2 years, SEBI has already fine-tuned its KYC regime, and it has been made fairly robust. And we will see if there are few loopholes here and there or few gaps here and there. That only those issues need to be addressed. It's not as if, we are trying to bring in a completely new regime and which sort of creates difficulty for market players. Having said that, let me also add that the fact that we now have an revised protocol signed with Mauritius with regard to the double taxation avoidance, I think a lot of the concerns which the SIT had, or a lot of the concerns that we have in our fight against black money, I think they will get addressed because of the revised protocol.
Okay, I'll come to Mauritius in just a second, but one of the other key recommendations of the SIT or the concerns was this business of transferability. Are you going to be looking at that? Is there likely to be any change as far as the transferability of ODIs are concerned within the P-note regime?
You will have to wait for that. That is under discussion, so it's not proper for me to give out the details.
Okay. But again, the finance minister said whether it's Mauritius or P-notes, it will be done in a phased manner. What should we expect now starting the 20th of May, which is when the SEBI board will meet to take up the issue of P-notes?
You see, 20th of May, SEBI board, we will have a discussion. Now, what decision, what will be the outcome, that you will have to wait. We might as well decide to hold further consultations. So it's not as if, we are going to decide something on the 20th.
That's very important, sir. You're saying that there may not be a final decision on the 20th of May as far as the tweaking, as you said, of the P-note regime?
I'm saying there may or may not be a decision. If it is considered necessary, we may decide to hold further consultations, but we'll have to wait for 20th.
What is the sense that you get as of today, sir? Would you need further consultations on this issue?
I don't think I would like to go into the details.
Okay, let me then ask you, as far as the Mauritius Treaty is concerned, sir, the government has been trying to allay concerns on the impact of the amendments that have been now implemented. But on the specifics as far as, convertible debentures, non-convertible debentures, exchange-traded derivatives, etc. are concerned, will the amendments apply or not? Will they be taxable post-April 1st, 2017?
You see, the amended protocol is very clear. So far as shares are concerned, there is no doubt. So far as then there are two other categories of instruments. One is immovable property, the other one is the other instrument. Immovable property, the right to tax is in the host country, that is where the immovable property is located. With regard to the other kinds of instruments, which would include various kinds of convertible instruments, that the right to tax, that is in the country of origin.
Absolutely. So tax residents of Mauritius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So therefore that has been the practice. That is the ingredient in all our double taxation avoidance agreement. The right to tax, that component is with the country of origin.
So
that is residency.
So debt and convertible instruments will be exempt from this new regime starting April 1, 2017.
You see, CBDT will in due course issue certain clarifications, but as long as there are as long as instruments have a debt character, as long as instruments do not have the character of a share, they will be taxed in the host country, meaning in the country of origin.
Okay. Linked to that, of course, are the changes proposed now for Singapore, because you said very clearly that Singapore is linked now to Mauritius. So when do we expect now the amendments as far as the Singapore Treaty is concerned?
You see, these are two sovereign countries. Now, Singapore amendment, the Singapore Protocol says that it will be coterminous. It will basically be a mirror image of what we do in the case of Mauritius. Now, Singapore is a sovereign country, so therefore the process of negotiation has to be initiated with Singapore now. And I would expect this to be taken to a logical conclusion very quickly. And the revised
within this financial year?
I would not like to, give a timeline, but yes, I mean, this is a very, it should be a very simple process of negotiation, and from our side we would like to do it as quickly as possible, because this differential taxation regime between various tax jurisdictions, that should go, because the whole idea is to create a level playing field between all countries, and also a level playing field between investors who come through these jurisdictions and our domestic investors.
I know that the Finance Ministry has been meeting with FPIs, trying to allay concerns. People like Mark Mobius have expressed concerns of foreign investors putting in money into India post the amendments as part of the Mauritius Treaty. Domestic investors like Rakesh Jhunjhunwala on CNBC TV 18 welcoming the move by the government, calling it a sensible decision. But do you fear that foreign investors may in fact be deterred from putting in money into India post this? And what have been the conversations that the Finance Ministry has had with them?
You see, India of 2016 is far different from India of 1983 when, we entered into this protocol. Today, India stands on its own legs. It's a robust economy with very strong fundamentals. The economy has inherent resilient factors. We are focusing on strengthening the firewalls, as the Finance Minister has said so in the budget speech. Among the various investment destinations, especially emerging economies, India is perhaps one of the very few countries which is showing a robust growth. Indian markets are giving a good return. So I don't think we are any longer, just a moment, I'll complete.
Okay.
We are no more in a situation, we are no longer in a situation where we need to give a discount to an investor to come into India.
But you were talking about the Indian markets giving returns. If I were to look at the picture between March 2015 and today, the Nifty is actually off about 14% from the March high of 9,000 plus. And if I were to even take a look at the 2015 performance, the markets are actually down in dollar terms.
See, you have to compare with the percentage returns which the other markets world over have offered. I mean, you see the Indian growth, we have come back to 7% plus. And we say that it is robust in the context of the in the context of growth that is witnessed in elsewhere in the world. So at 7.5%, 7.6%, we feel it's a robust growth, and not just we, but the analysts world over. Comparatively, it is a robust growth. So similarly, the returns our markets are offering are far better compared to the other markets.
Let me ask you about growth, since you talked about it, because again, it's a confusing picture that we get in terms of growth numbers. If you look at the March IIP numbers, much below expectations, coming in at just about 0.1%. Manufacturing has slipped back into negative. Export performance, 18th month for the straight decline that we're seeing. Of course, trade deficit has come in at a 5-year low. Non-oil imports are also down. So what should we make? Even your indirect tax collections, which I know the government is very happy about, but stripped off all the cesses and the excise duty hikes, they're up just about 17%. So, it still continues to show a patchy and a confusing picture as far as the economy is concerned.
See, we live in a globalized world. The decline in exports is moving in tandem with the contraction of world trade. You have to look at the total world demand which has today gone down. So overall, when there is a contraction in world trade, naturally it gets reflected in exports of all countries. And so naturally there is a decline in exports in value terms. And with regard to the industrial numbers, you know, the gross numbers which you mentioned, it is mainly a function, it's mainly due to the fact that the input costs have also come down. You know, the commodity prices, the input costs have also come down. So therefore, statistically when you analyze it, it has got some bearing in terms of lower value addition. So I'm not let's not get too technical, but this is what the analysts have told. But let us look at the automobile sales in the last 3-4 months, for example. Let us look at the sale of cement in the first quarter of this calendar year.
Right.
Let us look at the kind of road construction projects which are being undertaken, the kind of steel demand and the kind of cement demand that it has led to. Let us look at the overall steel sector which was in distress. Today's steel sector looks far more stable than it did about a year ago.
Right.
So therefore, there are green shoots, there are signs of improvement. You cannot expect ourselves to be not at all impacted by what's happening all around us. Given a turbulent global economic environment, I think India is performing very well, and the budget has come as budget has given a very strong, has taken a very strong initiative in many of these sectors. So we would expect, provided, if we get a good monsoon, which we hope we will, I think we are looking at a growth close to 8%.
You're looking at a growth close to 8% if the monsoon delivers.
Yeah.
Okay. Then let me ask you, sir, in terms of specific sectors now, you talked about steel, and there's been a lot of talk around a financial restructuring package for steel. The Finance Ministry has been in consultation with the Steel Ministry as well as the Niti Aayog. Where do things currently stand on that front?
You see, steel, already the import duties have been increased to 12.5%, and there is a safeguard duty. The anti-dumping proceedings are already under consideration by the concerned authorities. And with regard to the restructuring of the loans, it's a function between individual steel company and the banks. And many of the steel companies, I am told, they are sort of already, some of them have already done it. They are stripping their other assets. They are offloading their other assets and taking steps to repay the bank loans. So it is a process of discussion between the banks and the steel companies, and going forward I think we should see resolution of many of these issues.
So there is no financial restructuring package then that's likely now for steel, at least for now?
Package, as and when if something comes, you will have to wait. I cannot just what the government of the cabinet would decide.
Okay, so since we're talking about banks and we're talking about NPAs, let me also ask you about where things stand now. The Bank Board Bureau has been meeting. Mr. Rai has held a meeting with public sector banks, asking them to step up lending. There's been a lot of talk about NPA committee and so on and so forth. Can you shed more light now on what we can expect as far as the attack on NPAs is concerned?
You see, the banking sector NPA was a major challenge, and that the government had to deal with. So in the budget, therefore, the Finance Minister has come out with a very strong message. Apart from providing 25,000 crore of equity support, there was a very strong message that if additional top-up equity is required, it will be provided. The Reserve Bank has also done some reclassification, which has, brought in about 37,000 crores of Tier 1 capital into the banks. The Bank Board Bureau has been constituted. They are also dealing with this problem of stressed assets. And now the bankruptcy law has been passed. The ARC, the asset reconstruction companies also 100%, 100% equity has, foreign FDI has also been allowed. The sponsors now can hold up to 100%, and the entire structure in the all the instrumentalities of government intervention, all the instrumentalities of policy intervention in the banking sector have been addressed. And I think the recoveries also are looking up. The banks are taking steps. If you look at, let's not go into individual cases, but if you look at individual cases, the banks are already in the process of recovering it. So I think the problem of stressed assets in banks looks to have come more or less under control.
Okay, looks to have come more or less under control. On the Bankruptcy Act, of course, now getting the Rajya Sabha's nod as well. But can you take us through how soon we can actually see it being implemented on the ground? When do we see the Bankruptcy Board, for instance, being set up? What can we expect now in terms of action to actually make sure that we start to enforce it?
You see, so far as the bankruptcy law is concerned, I must mention, before I go into the details which you are asking, let me mention there are 2 points which I think need to be highlighted, and which I think I have not seen any section of the media reporting it at least. Number one, this will make Indian economy far more efficient. Number two, it will ensure a more productive use of capital that is deployed in the Indian economy. Today what is happening is that there is an inefficiency around the resolution of financial distress in corporates, LLPs, partnership firms. It takes months and years together, and the problems don't get resolved. By the time the companies don't get restructured, and by the time you go for liquidation, very little value is left in the assets. Today it is a time-bound process. It will be done far quicker. With regard to capital also, if there are idle assets and if the company is not doing well, there is money locked up in that, factory.
Right.
There is capital locked up in that particular company or LLP. This time-bound process which the bankruptcy law provides, this will ensure that there is a quick resolution or a quick liquidation, and the money, the capital which is locked up, is retrieved and redeployed elsewhere.
Right.
So therefore, this mechanism, the bankruptcy law, will ensure a far more robust and productive use of capital that is available. With regard to the administrative structures that have to be set up, that's already work in progress. Our focus so far has been on passing on having the legislation passed. There was considerable interaction with the Joint Parliamentary Committee.
Right.
Now the next step is to draft the rules, which is already, we are working on it,
okay,
and then create the structures.
By when will the rules be ready, sir?
You see, one of the structures is the NCLT.
Right.
And the NCLT is is going to be the important authority under the bankruptcy law. And separately, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has taken steps, and I would expect the notification in this regard to be issued in a short while, maybe. I mean, it should be getting issued very shortly. And with regard to the administrative structures, look, I would not like to give a timeline, because this is a new ecosystem that we are creating. It was a completely, this was a vacuum.
Yeah.
This was a systemic vacuum. We are now creating an ecosystem to fill up that systemic vacuum. So therefore, I would not like to get into a timeline thing now.
Okay.
But having said that, let me say that this is top priority, and it will be done in a time-bound manner, and it will be done as early as possible.